Welcome back to ACB Wrestling Talk, your main source for wrestling news and wrestling discussions. I'm, of course, your host, Alexis Carrillo, and let's get into some wrestling talk. Now, today's Monday, November the 18th, which means we've got in essence, recap what happened and what transpired this past Friday on SmackDown, where we've got pretty much a routine episode, except for one small segment, and I'll get to that segment right now. But we found out that the men's team SmackDown consists of King Corbin, Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns, Chad Gable, and Mustafa Ali. The last two of which defended their spots on the blue team for Survivor Series against a team of Rude and Ziggler, former Raw Tag Team Champions. Now, with that said, I would just like to state that it is pretty embarrassing and petty that they have someone, first of all, someone like Dolph Ziggler, someone who has had over 10 years in WWE, almost 20, almost over 10 years of a career in WWE, where he's been a multi-time tag team champion, multi-time US champion, multi-time intercontinental champion, even a world champion in his own right. A guy like Dolph Ziggler just pandering and following the coattails of the current King Corbin, who frankly hasn't done anything in his career remotely close to what Dolph Ziggler has done. Hell, Corbin has been Money in the Bank winner, so has Ziggler, and Ziggler actually cashed in successfully. That's number one. Then you have someone like Bobby Roode, who made a career in Impact Wrestling where he was world champion. He was world champion, or at least the NXT champion, during his developmental days when he first came into WWE. He's a former United States champion. At least to me, if you ask me, guys like Bobby Roode, guys like Dolph Ziggler should not be following or should not be part of Baron Corbin's King's Court. That's just me. It just puts them on a way lower level than they should be. But hey, that's WWE creative for you. They much rather treat Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler like, much more lucrative B team than what they actually are, than what they actually are, which is two very formidable wrestlers in their own right who are miles ahead of Baron Corbin, in my opinion. But nonetheless, they lost to Gable and Mustafa Ali, which I have no problem with, because WWE has been on quite a roll building up these no-name, pretty much no-character wrestlers like Mustafa Ali, like Buddy Murphy, like Chad Gable, like Humberto Carrillo. They've been on a roll with that, so they're at least being consistent with giving them airtime or time on the air, and I appreciate that. But again, following Baron Corbin, I get it. He's the king. He won the King of the Ring tournament. Whatever. That tournament has lost so much prestige. It's not over any kind of championship accolades, and you already know how I feel about Baron Corbin. We also found out that the women's tag team for SmackDown is going to be consisting of Lacey Evans, Nikki Cross, Carmella, Sasha Banks, and Dana Brooke, with of course the boss being the captain. Not only that, we've got a little taste of what Survivor Series is going to look like, because we had, I believe it was the team of Lacey Evans, Nikki Cross, Dana Brooke, and Sasha Banks against the team of Dakota Kai, Rhea Ripley, and I'm forgetting the other two women in NXT who were a part of this 8-woman tag team match this past Friday night on SmackDown. And again, the match was so forgettable, I already forgot who won the match. But the thing is, that's just a little appetite, a little taste of what's going to go down at Survivor Series this upcoming Sunday. That's right, folks, it's this Sunday already. And we also got two very big announcements from Friday Night SmackDown. One of which, Bray Wyatt, the brand new Universal Champion, The Fiend, he came out on his uh, house party. Damn it, I forgot the name. Fun house party. I can't remember the name exactly, but he came out and he pretty much changed the Universal title design. Instead of it being a Raw red, it's now a SmackDown blue. And why not? You know, back in 2016 when they announced the Universal title to be the Raw World title, they presented it in that red branding and they announced it as the Raw World title. Now it's been moved over to SmackDown, which means that now it is the SmackDown World title, so now it is only fitting that it has the blue branding, the blue color right all over the Universal Championship. So, we also had another segment of Miz TV where, you know, essentially Daniel Bryan challenged Bray Wyatt to a Universal Championship match at Survivor Series. Now, this is something I pretty much predicted and previewed on Friday's episode because, like I said, seeing as Brock Lesnar was going to be defending the WWE title at Survivor Series, you know, it wasn't going to be Raw champion versus SmackDown champion versus NXT champion. That's not going to be the case, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be NXT title on the line at Survivor Series, or it might, because I believe Adam Cole is a part of War Games for the TakeOver event, so we'll just have to wait and see what they announce at Survivor Series. But again, it's going to be Bray Wyatt versus Daniel Bryan for the Universal title at Survivor Series. That's been made official, and hopefully they do not make the same mistake they did with Seth Rollins. Hopefully they do not go all out for this one match, because like I said, this is the end of the year. TLC is coming up in December, and then we got the Rumble. I think they could stretch out this rivalry all the way until the Rumble, given the fact that they have a lot of history to draw on. If you recall, right before Daniel Bryan became the superstar that he is today, right before WrestleMania 30, Daniel Bryan joined the Wyatt family. It was just 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then he betrayed him inside the steel cage, and then we had the beginning and the rise of the Yes movement. And, you know, in that segment on SmackDown, Bray Wyatt kind of referenced that moment where Daniel Bryan pretty much betrayed the Wyatt family and Bray Wyatt himself, and how the Fiend was going to make him pay for that. Again, keep drawing on that, because, you know, the Fiend can certainly be this character who can torment and be this nightmarish opponent for any kind of rival, even though Daniel Bryan isn't quite a babyface right now, but they should. Again, they should switch this out as much as possible, because there aren't many viable babyfaces or opponents for Bray Wyatt to face on pay-per-view other than Bryan and Roman Reigns. So, and, you know, going into our second segment right here on Wrestling Talk today, we've got a WWE Hall of Famer who agrees that Daniel Bryan can certainly tell a story to get fans to boo Bray Wyatt. Now, I'm not saying Bray Wyatt's going to be getting boos at Survivor Series, but there's a slightly better chance than what Wyatt had against Seth Rollins. Of course, Mark Henry, WWE Hall of Famer Mark Henry, appeared on Busted Open Radio, where he spoke about how fans have enough respect for Daniel Bryan and enough history for Daniel Bryan to respect him as a babyface and Bray Wyatt as a heel. And I quote, "Daniel Bryan can tell a story in that match and make Bray Wyatt a monster, rather than somebody that everybody is loving and respecting, because he's got enough history with the wrestling fans that they respect him. Bryan's going to make them love him again. He started with the 'no, I can't do it, I don't want to go back,' and misreferenced, he was like, 'Who are you? Are you that guy that everybody loves with the yes chants? Or are you the heel, the bad guy that everybody hated?' Daniel will tell that story mid-match. In the beginning, I think it's going to be a lot of bells and whistles, and they're going to go at each other and make everybody in that arena go, holy shit. But then somewhere, there's going to be a point where Daniel is not going to do that bad thing. By the middle of that match, the crowd will be booing Bray Wyatt. Sorry, I can promise you." So, needless to say, Mark Henry thinks that fans won't hijack this feud or this rivalry or this match the way that they did with Wyatt versus Rollins. And like I said, I agree with that. They might, Mark Henry might have a little bit of a point here, because Daniel Bryan was miles ahead of over whatever Seth Rollins has been over the past few years. So looking forward to that. And let's see. Again, I don't expect Daniel Bryan to become a Universal Champion. That's not gonna happen. In my opinion, I think they should have Bray Wyatt keep the Universal title all the way until at least WrestleMania, where he faces off against Roman Reigns. I've called that out on this show for quite some time. I will stand by it until WrestleMania comes along. Going into our third segment, the Young Bucks, they talk about how AEW are listening to fans and how they are utilizing social media to pretty much sign new stars, in this case, Private Party. And I quote, "I watched a 60-second YouTube clip and I said, yep, we're signing them." Matt said, "It's fun to see that the television product is working because nobody knew these guys a couple months ago. And now Private Party, a graphic of them can appear on the big screen and the entire arena goes nuts. So it's proof in the pudding. It's proof it's working and we just have to keep going." So, and he continued going on Twitter and seeing who's blowing up, who's making waves, whose guests are circulating. It's the easiest time ever to have something go viral, so we keep our eyes on everything. That's how a lot of these stars are being made these days, is through social media. So again, there's a different approach by the Young Bucks and some executives and some men at All Elite Wrestling, rather than go out to independent wrestling shows or other companies' wrestling shows and scout their talent. They might just go on social media, they might just go on YouTube and watch 30-second, 60-second YouTube clip and, already decide, hey, I'm going to sign him to a AEW exclusive contract or an AEW contract. Now, I kind of have a problem with that because, like I said, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, it's normally the highlight reel. It's a sizzle reel. It's their best moves, and they're normally high-flying moves, holy shit moves, holy shit moments. That's what, that's what these videos present to any kind of fan and, wrestling scouter in terms of the talent. But at the end of the day, you still have to go over, their in-ring psychology in the entirety of the match. They still have to go over their promo skills. They still have to get a sense of how the crowd reacts to them and how they react to a live audience. I think that's just as big of a part of the scouting, damn it, I'm forgetting words today. The scouting system, as it is just watching the big holy shit moves and high-flying maneuvers. At least, again, everything I say here, it's from my point of view. It's my opinion. You don't have to agree. You don't have to agree with it. In fact, if you don't agree with it, or if you do agree with it, leave your thoughts and comments on the comment section below. He also spoke about how they are, pretty much listening to the fans and the fans on social media, and how they're not waiting for the company to, get too late to a feud or get too late to a big babyface run or a big heel run that they want, executed. And I quote, "You can't ignore that stuff in wrestling. You have to go with it. We want to be different than other wrestling companies. We want to listen to our audience and give them what they actually want." Again, these are all comments by Matt Jackson. So again, they have been listening to the fans, and I give them props for listening to the fans, but there's one thing that they should consider. Okay, they are now running a business. they are now businessmen, and sometimes listening to the fans might not be the best for business. It might not, sometimes. And sometimes, it's not going to be possible to always listen to the fans. And you don't want to give the fandom this overall entitled point of view of, I'm paying the money, give me what I want. Again, this is just my point of view. Again, with creative, you normally have a set plan. You normally have, a road that you've already set for yourself in terms of superstars, in terms of rivalries. If it's working, and then as fickle as fans and fandom can be, they want to change like that. Sometimes it might not behoove you to do so because, like I said, fans are so fickle. Fans change their opinions like that at a drop of a dime, and then you're left with absolutely nothing. You're left with a half-baked feud over here. You're left with a half-baked feud over there. So again, tread lightly. Yes, listen to the fans, and they might be listening to the fans a little bit more than WWE does nowadays. But again, it can't be all wrestling fandom fantasy booking. That's just not going to work for a wrestling business. That's just not how it works, at least in my opinion. But what do you think? Leave your thoughts, comments, and predictions on the comment section below. On the fourth segment, pretty much getting close to the end of today's show, we have Tommaso Ciampa speaking out about how they were called up to the main roster and what might have been the reason for it. Now, earlier this year, both Ciampa and Johnny Gargano were called up to the main roster. They had, I believe, 2 appearances on Raw, maybe a match or 2. And it appeared that they were now official main roster members, that they had now been called up to the main roster, or that they were about to. Obviously, now this is November, they are still performing for NXT. So, in an appearance with, I'm sorry, I didn't note down the podcast, I apologize for that. But Ciampa had to say that, and I quote, "As far as Ricochet, Aleister, myself, and Gargano being on the main roster, there wasn't a lot of explanation, to be honest with you. Sometimes there are spots that need to be filled, and you just have to be at the right spot at the right time, or the wrong spot at the wrong time. Whatever it may be, and it just so happened that this scenario for us, it was one of those things where NXT was not on television at the time, and we were heading into WrestleMania weekend, and that sprint during WrestleMania season is insane in WWE. I think they just needed spots filled and thought it was a good opportunity to get more eyes on our product. Us four in particular, going into one of our biggest pay-per-views. I don't know how it felt. I don't know how it fell into the NXT storylines or didn't. I have confidence that it would have all played out so that people, because I did see some negative backlash where Johnny and I were in a feud, and here we are coming in as a tag team, DIY at the time. Johnny and I were not in such a bitter rivalry. We were kind of starting to get on the same page. I don't know. Maybe it would have played out on a certain way. I think it would have. I kind of trust the process here, but yeah, I don't ask a lot of questions. I just go out and do my job. And at that time, my job was to show up and perform on Raw and perform on SmackDown and do my job. Ciampa, obviously referencing the fact that, it was just a 2-week run heading into WrestleMania season, and they weren't permanent main roster call-ups. We all realized that pretty damn quickly. And how, that's just the way it works. We just saw this happen 2 weeks ago when NXT was just brought in out of nowhere to be a part of the entire episode of SmackDown. For all we know, they would have been at the end of the SmackDown episode. They would have had one small segment, or they would not have been a part of SmackDown at all. That's for all we know. But circumstances led to NXT showing up on SmackDown, just as earlier this year, circumstances led to Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano appearing on Monday Night Raw and appearing on the main roster for just a few weeks and just to fill out some appearances like Ciampa stated. Nothing more, nothing less. And being that today is November 18th, that's a Monday, we got ourselves the Go Home Monday Night Raw episode of, Go Home Monday Night Raw episode heading into Survivor Series, where we'll have Becky Lynch and Charlotte team up on Monday's Raw, with opponents yet to be named. Becky Lynch heading over to face off against Bayley and Shayna Baszler in a triple threat match, championship match at Survivor Series. Charlotte, I believe, is going to, either Charlotte or Natalya, is going to be named leader of Team Raw on the women's division side of things this Monday to face off against the SmackDown side of things and against the NXT side of things. I also expect the women's team for Monday Night Raw to be announced tonight, because you really don't have any other option. We also have Asuka taking on Natalya in one-on-one action. I believe this match might be stopped due to interference by either SmackDown or NXT or both. But again, this is going to be a go-home show to Survivor Series. You really have to highlight the fact that it's going to be brand versus brand versus brand for brand supremacy this Sunday at Survivor Series. And that's something that the machine, that WWE, does not have a problem getting across. Rey Mysterio will make an appearance before his Survivor Series match against WWE Champion Brock Lesnar, and hopefully Brock Lesnar makes an appearance and, they could hype that entire thing up and give fans some false hope that Rey Mysterio might walk out WWE Champion, which, again, if you ask me, I do not believe one bit that will happen. All due respect to Rey Mysterio, but again, Brock Lesnar just squashed Kofi Kingston. He beat Cain Velasquez in 2 minutes? Rey Mysterio is going to be around that same range this Sunday at Survivor Series. That's just a fact. Seth Rollins faces off against Andrade, where the winner gets to captain the men's team Raw, and the loser is off the team and off the card, being that Team Raw already features Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, Drew McIntyre, and Ricochet, so it's just one more member to be announced. So Rollins versus Andrade, who gets to be team leader? Again, this is just another segment, another match where WWE is trying to put Rollins over as Team Raw leader, as this leader of the Red Brand, and this as the top babyface on Monday Night Raw. It's just another one of those segments. So again, Seth Rollins gets the win over Andrade, even with Selena Vega at ringside, causing interference and causing distraction. And finally, we get another misdirection that's shouldn't really be there, because it's going to be the Viking Raiders against Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins for the Raw Tag Team titles. Again, trying to mislead us and trying to make us believe that, hey, it might be Ryder and Hawkins at Survivor Series instead of the Viking Raiders, just like it happened on SmackDown. That's not going to happen. Viking Raiders are going to walk out with the victory, and that's going to be that for tonight's episode of Monday Night Raw, and that's going to be that for today's episode of ACB Wrestling Talk. Been messing up a lot of words today. Sorry. So with that said, what do you think about all these topics? What do you think it's going to happen tonight on Monday Night Raw? Leave your thoughts, comments, and predictions on the comments section below. I've been Alexis Carrillo. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you dislike this video, hit the dislike button. That's for me. See you tomorrow.